Hi, my name is Monica Kretschmer, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Universal Women's Network, Woman of Inspiration Awards, and this is the Woman of Inspiration podcast, where we speak with women who lead, inspire, and motivate. So today's guest, we are honored to welcome an extraordinary leader, visionary, and a true game changer, Brenda Andress. Brenda is a trailblazing Canadian sports executive, the inaugural commissioner of the Canadian Women's Hockey League, and the founder and president of SheIS, the first cross sport initiative uniting major leagues to elevate women's sport through collective action, storytelling, and fan engagement. Throughout her career, Brenda has shattered glass ceilings from becoming the first woman to play on a men's varsity college team to forging landmark partnerships with the NHL and introducing players' compensation for women in hockey. A multiple award winning leader, Brenda has been recognized by among the top 100 most powerful women, receiving the YWCA Women of Distinction Award and the Global Silver Woman Changing the World Award for Sports. Also, Brenda is a Woman of Inspiration nominee for this year. We don't want to let anything out of the bag just yet, Brenda. A multiple award winning leader, Brenda has been recognized and she continues to champion equality, innovation, and legacy, proving that when women rise, we all rise. Get ready, listeners, for an inspiring conversation about courage, vision, and the movement to transform the landscape for women in sport. Welcome, Brenda, to the Woman of Inspiration podcast. And listeners, get ready to be inspired.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored to be here.
So, Brenda, I always start with the very beginning. I know we had a little chat in the green room, and I've got, some questions to ask you about that jersey. So remind me if it doesn't come up. Just go, Monica, let's talk about that jersey. But I want to talk about right now. You've been called a trailblazer for women in sports. And so when you do look back, there's a defining moment when you realize creating something that would shift the future for women in sport. Did you know about that moment as a defining moment at the time?
No, I did not know, but probably about 5 or 6 years ago on Mother's Day, somebody asked me to tell a story about my mom. And when I started to think about this story, it hit me like a rocket ship of there it was. That was the moment in my life. Those were the words I spoke about, come on, Mom, let's get in this truck. We are going to be game changers in the women's world. And I, um, I'll tell you the story. It was,
Let's hear it. This is
yeah.
what we came for.
So the story is pretty simple. I started playing hockey at the age of 16 years of age. It was the first time it was offered for women to play. And it was just a Sunday at 12 noon where, they were going to bring as many women together and we were going to play this little pickup game. But to me, it was hockey. It was the start of something that I've, yearned for since the time I was born. And my brother was playing AAA, who was 3 years younger than me, and he'd been playing hockey, and I'd been on the sides, and I was playing out in the pond with him forever and a day. But on the very first day when we were supposed to go to my very first game, my dad said to me, "I'm really sorry, but you're not going to be able to go because your brother's been called in for a tryout, and so we have to take the car and take to him." And I was devastated. And they pulled away, but Dad had just bought a brand new construction van, which was three on the wheel, which is the gear shift on the wheel. And I looked at my mom and I said, "Mom, we're going to drive that van to my game." And she goes, "Can you drive a standard?" I went, "No, but I can learn. I've driven everything here on the farm and the construction. Let's just jump in there, Mom. I'm sure I can do it. Let's go." I said, "We're going to be trailblazers. Let's get in there." Right. And so she looked at me and she said, we're not going to be in good shape if this car gets wrecked. I said, "Come on, Mom, we can do it." So we jumped in the car. And by the time, and we hopped, like there were some times when we hopped that poor standard, big
Oh, I can
white
hear the
van.
green. I can hear the gears grinding as you're telling
Yeah,
this story.
yeah. But we hopped that car there. By the time we got there, it was like 10 miles away at that time. And by the time we got there, I had the gear shift down pat, and I went out and played my first game. And I remember looking up in the stands in the old arena that I played in where the glass was, and there my mom sat. And there she sat for the next couple of years as I played hockey. But we got back in the car, and Mom says, she goes, you know, they had a nickname for me, right? So they had said Ben, which is Brenda. They had said, I can't believe you just jumped in here and made it work. And I said, Mom, this is women's sports. We're going to change it. We're going to make a difference. And there it was. And it was like from that moment on, it was like I just knew nothing would stop me when I wanted to do something, or I had something in mind that, yeah, I had to learn, yeah, I had to take a risk. But to this day, I'm happy I took that risk because I just adore the game of hockey.
So what's interesting is that when you shared, you had this kind of deep desire inside you since your earliest memory. And
Since my early
so,
memory.
how many other women are listening to this podcast that have had a deep desire for to pick up a hockey stick, to pick up a football, to pick up, a tennis racket, or, to build their dream about something that they wanted to do. So, it's a lot to have this burning desire to do it, but you turned that desire into action. And so that has been something that has followed you through your career. You were the first woman to play on a men's varsity college team. Powerful moment in Canadian sports history. So, what did that teach you about your leadership and perseverance? And what was that moment like? Did you know again that this was another defining moment for you?
I cannot tell a lie. I did not want to play on that men's team. It was one of those situations where, way back when you're young, I was playing on, you know, three hockey teams, you know, and, and the boys were all, I was in what they call park recreation and leadership program. So, and it was funny because so we all hung out. We were all the sports people. We were all the people that were doing everything. And somebody had turned to me and said, well, you're pretty good at hockey, but you can't make the men's team. And I said, was that a bet? Because I really like a challenge when somebody says, is that a bet? And what started out to turn out to be a joke, the next thing I knew, I was sitting in the dean's office and the dean was saying, well, we're going to let you try out. And I went, what? Like, and, and it was a learning opportunity in many different ways because the team that I played on was absolutely phenomenal. But we had to change my number every game. People, we went by a nickname because we didn't have the right name on it. Back then, I kind of looked, well, I wish I looked like the same, but I mean, my hair was short. And back in the 1958, 60s, boys' hairs were long. And a couple of guys on the team, they would take the worst, like, butt ends and everything else because they say, how do you like playing on a guy's team? And they'd shout, I am a guy. I'm a guy. I'm not the girl. And and the press followed me around, and the press's interest wasn't about my skill or about what we did. The press interest is where do you change? How do you get the information and not being in there? And I think the lesson for me through that was I absolutely adored. As a matter of fact, at the end of that season, we got the one guy who had long blonde hair with a ponytail, that said, "I'm not the girl." We got him a t-shirt that said that because it was kind of funny because I think for the boys on the team or the men, I guess, but they were boys to me back then, they kind of learned what I went through in order to play a game I loved. I mean, the other teams didn't even know me or who I was or what I represented, but they were out to make me understand that I didn't belong in their world. And I think the concept was, yes, I learned something, but yes, I think all the guys that were on my team also learned how difficult a path it was to follow something you loved. And many times I'd say to them, what are we going to do about this? It's not just me, it's like people coming forward after me that would have to go through the same thing. But I think the concept was a twofold learning. And I think in our world sometimes that, what we go through or what we try to go through, there's also massive lessons around us that others are learning as we push through to create or, make that next step in our own journeys is that we sometimes don't know the effect we have on others.
Mm. It's my son played hockey growing up, Brenda, and I would, you know, almost have a little tear coming out of my eye because when he'd get smushed into the boards and by a bigger player, and I'm looking at, even the size of men compared to the size of women, that's a full contact sport. And it's not like you're intending to hurt somebody, But I mean, did that come up where, I mean, I would have, you're so brave, is what I'm going to say. You're so brave to get on those skates and be around those big men. But did they change anything about how they treated you on the ice in a very contact sport when you were playing? Or did you come home and put ice packs on all the time?
Well, I went from playing defense to playing forward. I had to shift because, it's a different game. I weighed 165 back then, and I was a good skater, and that's not egotistical. It's just that, my ability to skate couldn't shoot, as my father would say, but it would be like I had good my skating was good. And I think so I became very flexible along the boards when I was hit, and I was small enough that I could turn. But I think I came home many times with bruises, many, many times with bruises, because I think they actually tried to hit our team more because they were trying to find the girl. And it's so funny, so often, when we go back and, talk to some of my friends that I played with, it was such a concept of what would that have proven to have hit me hard enough to hurt me? If they could find me playing other, if they hurt me, what did that accomplish? What did that prove? That women didn't belong to them. It was the age-old women don't belong in men's hockey. We're not big enough, we're not strong enough. And I kind of thought, what are you trying to prove though by hurting me? Like if you don't even know who I am on the ice and we're changing jerseys, obviously I'm not out here not belonging. So it's like, so what's your concept? So yeah, there was lots of times that I'll be honest with you, I just wanted to quit. I was never so glad when the season was over because it was such a hardship on it's a hardship on your body. And it was the same thing when I started roughing, so many times, with the helmet on, people didn't know I was a woman on the ice roughing. And then when I come off the ice and they realized, oh my God, that's a woman, then it was like, oh, that God game was horrible. You called it terrible, and then it was like, but on the ice, you didn't know who I was and I was okay. So it's like sometimes I think, we when you talk about stories, Monica, it's like sometimes we get in our heads as males or females that there's a story that's been told to us that these people don't belong. And so therefore we'll prove it true, but you don't even know because you haven't taken the time to see if I belong, to understand why, hey, I might belong. And so I think, there's this embedded story that we've created in our society for a lot of people, and they don't stop to see if that story is true.
Mm, well said. So I would love to ask you about those teammates in your earlier years and the lessons of, because you teams are very bonded and almost like a family for most part of it. And you have to have that mentality of a family before you can actually go and, play together and work so well together. So did that change for you being part of the boys club? Did they welcome you as one of the guys eventually?
So my team was phenomenal. My team was phenomenal. And I think they were glad because when I first tried out, the coach skated us like crazy. And the poor guys are looking at me going, I'm okay. I play on three other teams, so I'm in good shape. Like, I'm sorry what's here, you guys. But no, I would say that the team I played on and the men that I refed with that were teammates in the male world to start were phenomenal. Like, because they got to know me. Right. Now there was other guys, in the refs where it was like, no, but I didn't ref with them after that. I'd be like, no, I don't have time or space for you. But most of the people were pretty good once they understood the concept is that I belonged. It didn't matter. I still belonged because I wasn't there. I wasn't there because people said, "Oh, let's just put this person in here and there we've ticked a box. It's a token." I was there because I was good at what I did. And when I say that because I trained. I say that because I studied. I say that because I made all these improvements because I knew I didn't have to be bigger and better. I just had to compete on the same level. And to do that, I had to train harder. I had to be better in order to be accepted. And I refed, and I love this one story. I was as I got older, my son was playing hockey and phenomenal hockey player actually. And he had retired and he was now reffing and skating with me as a referee, which I loved. And he says to me, Mom, I'm going to play summer hockey. I said, okay, we're going to play. I'm going to play at the rink down here. And it's mixed, Mom. Come play with me. I went, oh my God, like and we're talking, he's probably, 28 at the time or something like this, right? So, and then, so he brought along my son-in-law. And so we were all playing on this team. It was mixed. And I'll still remember we were all sitting at the bar afterwards, like about the third game in, and we're all sitting there and we're all having a chat. And all the other guys in the team don't have any clue. And then finally they turned to my son and they said, Jonathan, how do you know Brenda? And he said, that's my mom. And I thought the guys would drop off their chairs because they went, that's a lie. That's a lie. And John goes, so that's my mom. And they went, there's no way our moms could play hockey. There's no way our moms could play sports with this. And John says, well, my mom can. And it was just the way my son said, oh, my mom can. What's the problem? Right. But
Yeah.
the concept for them was there's no way that can be your mom. There's just no way that she could be playing in this league with us and be your mom. So it was kind of like, but again, I think that by doing that and my son being so calm and being so supportive that he changed the minds of all those people that were playing on our team and acceptance of those people playing on our team. So I think there's so many avenues for us to make a difference through ourselves or our children or people we come in contact with.
Well, I just want to say he sounds like a star support her. What we call is a support hers, or the men that are champions for women. And there are men in the world of, sport, like Dr. Vonda's, husband, Peter Taglianati, who played for actually Winnipeg for a short period of time. And, so there are men out there. We just need to
Totally.
dust them off and tell them to be heard more and more, I think, Brenda. And I think that your son sets a great example. I'll talk a little bit more about that, but I want to talk about that career path and journey that really led you to the inaugural commissioner of the CWHL, the Canadian Women's Hockey League. Woohoo! Like, tell us about that. You introduced major changes. You went from securing national broadcast deals to establishing player compensation. So, what was your biggest challenge and how did you push through that?
Oh gosh, that's a story in itself for sure. Um, you have to love what you do in life, and I loved what I did. And it wasn't done by me alone. Like Sammy Joe Small was one of the founders of that league. Lisa Bertant was there. Many other people started that league. It wasn't just me. I was just the commissioner that came in. And, we had wonderful conversations with Gary Bettman from the NHL, who tried to guide us and give us information. And, we had great chairmans, we had great board members that really, really helped us in directing us because it's all volunteer, right? For the first 5 years of that job, my salary was $35,000, right? So imagine, Mr. Batman coming in. Now he's in a different world than us, right? But the concept for me was to provide a space that women who were so phenomenally skilled had a place to showcase that skills and to have the fans be able to see them. And because most people who came in and saw the game would go, oh my God, I did not know women could play that great. And so we met with, the Toronto Maple Leafs, back then it was Brian Burke, Jeff Molson, Calgary was involved in that. And they supported us and gave us opportunities for the first All-Star game inside of NHL buildings, broadcasted live, right? We had the first awards ceremony in Markham where, the mayor of Markham supported that hugely, and he gave us opportunity to showcase those females and give them something. And then we did the partnership with China, which gave us the opportunity to pay our players at a minimal. Like, we didn't pay players that could make a living out of it. That's where they kind of are now, which is awesome where they're at. But that base was built there, and I think that's the key, right? When you talk about the CWHL, or you talk about the leagues that came before the CWHL, or the leagues that came afterwards with the PW, I think it's PWL, I think it is, that came after us, and then the current league, there's I think the PWHL is successful and in existence because of all the background of the past. Nobody has a future unless there's a past. And
Mm.
it's accepting that past, and it's knowing that that past is built and what part of you are of that past and what part of you are of the future. So for me, it was never about, um, the benefits to Brenda Andress. It was more of, I absolutely love what I do. And how can I get to a place where the players will be able, where they're paid for what they're worth. And I'm so happy with the PWHL in that position that, women are being recognized now. People are going to show. I'm so glad of the fan base that many people built over the last 100 years. The OWHA has been involved in so many different things of building the game, Hockey Canada, USA Hockey. There's been so many people that have put it together, but it wasn't an easy path. It was, most of the time I spent nights trying to figure out how we're going to pay for stuff. It's always the joke. One of the chairmen, Brad Morris, said to me one time, I was zipping down the 404, which is a big highway in Toronto, and I had the Clarkson Cup strapped in the back seat of the my car because we didn't have a case for the Clarkson Cup at that time, right? So then we got one donated by the Hockey Hall of Fame, and every year we became a bit more successful, a bit more professional. But it was but I never came across anybody that wasn't supportive. They didn't write the checks, but they were supportive of what we were doing, and they were supportive of what the board and the volunteers and all the massive staff people on each team were trying to accomplish.
Beautiful. And I've driven on the 404, and I think that needs a double harness, by the way. It is a
Probably.
scary drive some days.
Well,
So you talked about the journey and the foundation that needed to be laid. Women in sports now is experiencing unprecedented growth and visibility. How does it feel watching this movement unfold, knowing that you were such an integral part of paving the way for that to happen?
I don't look at myself like that, to be honest, because I think I'm one of 1,000 that made women's sports successful to where it is today. And but what I want people to understand is that we're not there yet. We are not there yet. Do we watch some games? Yes. But are all voices heard in women's sports? No. Are all women's sports visible? No. Do we still have contracts in place that have branding, you know, that gives us opportunities for our players to train? We just had the rugby team have to go on GoFundMe page to get funding to go to the Worlds. So yes, we have the big teams. And yes, thank God some people are getting in there, but you're getting in there because it's successful. You're getting in there because you go, oh, wait, this is an opportunity. I'm going to sign a check now. To me, it's like, and thank you for signing the check now. Don't get me wrong. But what we need is people to support something that isn't there yet because it will be there. Women's sports is beginning, but I don't want people to take their eye off the target because we're not there yet. We're on the path, but we're not there yet. We're still invisible in 97%. We're still invisible, right? And our stories are told at playoffs, and our stories are told when something goes wrong. But our stories aren't told any other time. And those stories need to be told. There's so many stories, so many stories.
Mm. Brenda, I could not agree more. And I think that's true for women, period. We have to prove ourselves, work 1,000 times harder just to get the base minimum. And you did call out the Canadian, women's rugby. Like, uh, what a success story. And my heart was going out to all of those women and like cheering loudly for them because that was an incredible. But why did we have to be the underdogs? Why do we continue to have to be the underdogs? Like, I'm sorry. The world was watching before, and I was looking for the name of the team. Come on, let's give them a proper name, So, anyways, I'm right with you on that. I do love the momentum that it's going and strong voices like yourself that are enabling these conversations to happen to tell those stories. And I'm right there with you on that. I I really love about the celebration piece because during that celebration, it just values the contribution that they're making. And so we still need to change women in sports to be valued for equality, not just celebrated. But how do you see this unfolding? Like, what is your vision for that to happen? Like, what do you think? If you're speaking to people right now in positions of power, because those are the ones that can actually make the change, what would you tell them right now?
Well, I might be a tad bit prejudiced on that particular answer because, I'm in the process of creating the SheIS Sports app. And that app is an aggregator of information for women's stories, women's stats, where to watch women's globally across the world. And for me, it's about, we need investors to step up and support women founders, to step up and support women's sports that maybe's not the top six right now, but will be, right? So it's like, I think for us, it's like we need people to support something that they keep going, oh, is women's sports really there? And I'm going, yes. You know what? I'm out there. I'm, pounding the pavement, as my two kids say all the time, looking for dollars. But it's like, it's hard to get an investor to say, the first ever aggregator of information for women's sports, never been done before. People say, well, there's men's apps out there, Brenda, that has sports. I go, if you can find a top story in the top six, besides a big playoff game, or besides, and love her to death what Caitlin Clark has done for the WNBA. But I also understand all the other women who play in the WNBA who have built that league, who have supported that league, whose skills are phenomenal, who have gone unseen until that moment. So it's kind of like, who told their stories back then? Nobody. So, for me, it's about the difference would be is don't wait. It's easy for me to go and buy stock now of something that's successful. It's easy for me to do that. But go and look for something that you are passionate in and support and invest in that. That's what we need out there. We have the Northern Soccer League here where women have stepped up as investors. The Toronto team, the Calgary team, those are women investors, those are women owners. And it's phenomenal that they've stepped up and done that, right? Which is great because they've not just said, here, I'm supporting it. They actually wrote the check. And so we need more of that because, for us, again, I'm totally being upfront here. I'm speaking on the behalf that I have my own private business now, for the first time, a for-profit business, at my ripe old age. And it's like, I'm saying to people, I don't understand. This is going to take the world by storm. We have an aggregator and we have a community where they can write the content. We're giving them a voice. We're giving them an opportunity to write their own stories, to write other stories, whether it's out watching your daughter in a minor grassroots program, or it's an amateur, or it's a professional. We want to give the opportunity for a community to be built by women for women. And so we're saying, don't be afraid of us. Don't say, oh, I don't know. Invest in women founders. Even if it's not sports, invest in women founders because we are the brains.
As a woman founder who has been bootstrapping for the last decade, yes, yes, and yes. Support women founders because, yes, we are driving change and we are actually building things to help lift others up along the way. So, Brenda, I before we leave this, you've said that isn't just an organization, it's a movement. What does that movement represent to you? And how can the everyday fans be a part of it?
Yeah, to me, it is a movement because it's in today's world. I think we're looking for a community. I think we're looking for a community of truth. I think we're looking for a community that supports social issues that are important to change women stories, important to change our voices, which allow our voices to be heard. Individual fans, individual communities, you can always help. You know what? Go to my site, the SheIS Sports app, sign up to get the newsletter for when the app coming, download the app. If you know somebody that has investment dollars, go to them and say, look, you need to get over here. Or the simplicity is if you want to make a change, I encourage you to make the change. I know it's hard. I know it's hard to step outside the box. I know it's hard of all the stories that you've heard all your life that you can't do this, you shouldn't do this, it's going to fail. Get back in there, just go to the job, tick the box, retire. But don't listen to that story. I encourage you to listen to the story within yourself. That's the right story, not the outside noise. And it's not easy, as my children say, not everybody was born knowing what they wanted to do in life, but I disagree with that. I say to them, everybody knows. They just have to calm the noise and understand there is absolutely nothing in this world that is worth achieving unless it's difficult, unless it's a rocky road because you appreciate it when you've walked that rocky road. And there's times I say to people at times, look, there is time for a moment that I want to just throw it down and go, I am done. But then as soon as I say that, I go, whose voice is that? Whose voice is that? That's not mine. That's the outside chatter saying to me. And it's like when you believe in something that nobody else does, that means you've got the right idea. Because if everybody believed it, it would already be done.
Bring on those no's so we can shoot them down. Like
That's
no
right.
for me. I'm assuming no for you is the same thing. No for me means not right now. Doesn't
Right.
mean never. You didn't say ever, you just said no. And so I'm going to say not right now.
Yeah,
Agreed?
I agree.
Yeah,
And
let's go get them, Brenda. Woohoo!
woohoo, I'll tell you something else, Monica. There has been investors that have come to me where we've had a long conversation and I thought, okay, this is it. They're going to invest in us. And we're not asking for a lot of money here. Like we're talking not a lot of money to get this app out the door, which will make a
How
difference.
much?
So we're trying to raise 1.8 million, right? And however, those are increments, right? If somebody come along, no matter what money they had, we would, we sell them in shares, right? Common shares. But to me, it's like there's some people that I've gotten to, and I remember getting off the phone and going, thank God that person said no, because they weren't the right investor. They were not the right investor. They would not have the same vision. They would not stay the path. They would want to change. And so it's not easy. It's not easy. And anybody that says it is not telling you the truth. But anything that's worthwhile is worth the risk.
Oh, Brenda, we're going to have a big conversation in the green room after this that I'm not ready to go public with because I am in the exact same position, but I'm going to really disrupt how we actually go out there and get that money and really enable people that are believe in your vision to be a part of it. Like I
Agreed.
truly do believe that there are so many people, and I talk about, or I haven't really shared too much with you on this podcast, but we have support her, which is how engaging men to the conversation. I mean, we couldn't even have that conversation 6 years ago when I started. People were like warning me, "Don't do it. You have a women's network," and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm engaging men because they're half the population." But it's just that everybody plays a role to champion for a woman to succeed. Period. And we have to open up the opportunities for people not only in positions of power that can write the checks, but the positions of power by using their voice and by using their social media, by using just the conversation to lift the awareness up. And so I got something big. We're going to have the world's largest women's summit in 2026, and we're targeting 1 million people. So, yes, we are going to talk about that, and we are going to talk a lot more about it. But I believe that that would be a really great amplifier and to really help women achieve their goals personally. Like, I think it
Agreed.
provides a whole great big global aspect where it brings awareness and dollars to the table. So we will talk more about that. I want to get back to, I really want to talk about, because positions of power really, there's a lot of men in positions of power. So how can we bring more of those support her champions to the table, Brenda? Because it really is important that we educate the men and really not look at them as the opposition, but almost the opportunity because they haven't really been asked. They've always been told they're the part of the problem. And I want to say, you're part of the solution. Bring your checkbooks. What do you Is that too bold?
No, 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 done that many times myself. Um, it's quite funny because I think, a lot of times we as women believe we don't belong in the room. But I also want to tell you that there's lots of times men don't believe they belong in the room.
I agree.
It's it's not, I mean, we're pretty bad, but we're men don't believe that also. And I think where we start to make a difference, I think we all make a difference as moms. As moms is what we teach our children. you know, you're absolutely right. I watch my son support his wife in what she does. I watch him support his daughter in what she does. I watch my grandkids, who my daughter has, and so now here's another generation, and I watch her sons, and what they've learned about interaction with women and how powerful women can be and how they should be included in it. Um, I think for us, it's about, and I always say this, it's like people say to me, Brenda, you're a feminist. And I go, I'm not. I'm a peopleist. And I say that because if my son had something going wrong, I'd be on the same podium as I would for my daughter. And I would be on the same podium if something was wrong in men's sports as if there was something wrong in women's sports. The difficulty that we have, I think, is that you are absolutely correct. We have created also a society where here's where men belong, and and they want to belong, so they're not stepping outside the box either, right? Like I say, I don't want to step over there. People are gonna think I'm not part of this crew over here. So the mindset is to say, in my opinion, is, moms are the big one that change it, you know. And I think then after that, we have a lot of things in place. So does the United States, so does Canada in those ways that says, so many women are going to be on board, so many women are going to be in the top. But if you look at it, we've actually decreased from when they all said that. We're going down the hill, not up the hill right now, right? And so why is that? Well, we have a surge of people, young boys that don't believe that they belong anymore, or don't believe that they have the same privileges, or don't believe that they have the opportunities that they used to have. And a part of me says, well, welcome to our crew, right? Like, we've been there, done that. But I think for us, it's not about saying that. It's about saying, listen, we understand. Let's work together.
Mm,
We don't have to be
preach.
opposite. We don't have to be opposite. We can work together because we're here. We're in the trenches, and now you're coming down to our trenches where we don't belong, and we're not given the same opportunity. So don't fight us, join us and say, how can we help each other? And I think that starts to change it. Again, I go back to what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to build a community that makes a difference, a safe community that says we all belong. I don't know anybody out there, and forgive me, my stats are only my own knowledge, right? I mean, I can give you stats on different things that are stats, but I mean, my stats about what I'm going to say right now is only my own stats. I don't know too many moms that would in any way, shape, or form not support their son or their daughter. Right now, people will say, well, my mom never supported me. And I'm saying, well, on general, I'm saying, even when it comes down to it, sometimes that mom that you all thought didn't support you is still supporting you in some way. And
Hmm.
so I really, really believe that it's not us against them. It's how can we make them understand that what we have to offer and what we will provide you is an opportunity to be successful on a different level. Because for us, it's about we've got these businesses, all of us. There's the sports, entertainment, media, business ideas, all kinds of things. There's so many women out there with that are founders that are trying to get money. And it's like we have opportunities for you to help join us, guide us, create something together. And I think, we have to reach out to those people. And I mean, I have phenomenal men that are working with me, just super, just super. And they're opening up their knowledge, and they're opening up their kindness. And I couldn't speak more highly of the people but I don't actually equate when people say, well, how many men do you have on your team? I go, you mean how many people do I have on my team? I think, we don't always have to separate us.
I love the Together We're Stronger piece. And, I do make this a part of our podcast all the time. Like, I always ask, who are those support hers in your world? Because enough about saying that we do it all on our own. That's a bunch of BS. We don't. Um, and as a boy mom, I also want to see more male role models for as examples for the young men out there. And when I'm building my teams, I'm also very much, yes, I want women in positions of power to be making those decisions, but I also think it's very important that we don't exclude the men, because then it's really, like, if we're excluding the man and we're asking to be invited to the table, aren't we kind of just being a little bit hypocritical there? So anyways, it's a fine balance, and I'm with you on the people, and that's why, I'm very much about, let's bring on those supporters, the ones that can actually make change, that can actually use their voice and influence and their power, to drive the change in the male community, because they only need one of those voices, two or three, and then more and more happen. It's like a ripple effect. So excited to hear that you have those men in your corner, Brenda, because we do need them. Um, I do want to pivot back to a couple things before we wrap up because I could talk to you forever. Let's get back to that Saturday that we have. But I also want to talk. You have been pushing the barriers since you were a young woman, a girl, a little girl. You were pushing barriers since you were a little girl. So, what would you share to our listeners today about, kind of those thoughts that were running through your head? If they wanted to push those barriers today, doing whatever they're pushing the barriers to do, what would you say to them?
I would say to them, you go, girl. It's like, it's,
And about
it's,
being the only one in the room, like, what would you say to them if they were like a little hesitant about being that only one in the room? What advice would you give them?
so it's always so funny because, when we are one voice in the room, lots of times we say it and then people don't hear us and somebody else says it and everybody goes, wow, I just said the same thing. I think for us, it's being okay with who you are. It's being okay with who you are. And in all kindness, what I will say to the listeners is stop trying to be a person you're not
Mm.
and start being the person you are because your story can only be told from you. If you try to tell somebody else's stories, if you try to be somebody else, you never will be that. I've said to my kids, and I think there's a famous saying that's pretty close to it because, and I'll give him credit, but I used to, he's just like, listen, you can't be somebody else because they're already taken, right? They're already taken. And the only way for you to be successful is to go, okay, I see what that person's done. I like some of the positive stuff. I don't like this. And so when I do my business, I'm going to do something different. And so therefore, now that difference is going to be who you are. Because again, that person's already taken. You can't be them. You can't be their business. You can't be anything like that. Don't recreate the wheel. It's already been created. Change it, decorate it, make it look prettier, do something along those lines. Again, that's what we're trying to do, right? And go back to just for a second. Our app is a female app that talks about female sports, but we're targeting the male and female fan on the app because the males love females sports just as much as we do. So we are saying men and women come to the app, download it, like do everything you can when it becomes available. But I think it's so important for you who's sitting there right now and going, I really want to start this business, but I don't know how. Well, it's like, okay, well, what's your choice? You reach out to a woman mentor, reach out to a male mentor, and be yourself and know that you are going to be in a room. You are going to be in a room where you're not heard. You are going to be in a room where you're scared to death. You are going to be in a room that goes, I don't belong here. But that imposter syndrome is for male and females. It's not just us. There's guys that are in there too doing the same thing. So it's all about, getting through those moments and realizing I did it. I didn't die, right? I didn't die. I'm still here. And now, and the one thing I will tell you, Monica, and I say this to my grandkids all the time, years from now, nobody's going to look back and say, Brenda Andress came into a room and she missed 4 lines in a sentence. It's not going to happen. Nobody remembers that except of us for the next 20 years of our own self beating up of saying it. Nobody remembers that. Nobody even knows. Like if I went back 100 years from now and named some woman, we don't know who she is. She might be remembered in her own family. But to me, it's like your impact is for today. Your impact is not for when you're gone. So make the impact for today.
Beautiful. And I also want to do a shout out to your kids. How many kids do you have, Brenda?
I have 2 kids, wonderful, wonderful children. I have a girl and I have a boy. And as greatest thing I've ever did. I say to people all the time, 2 of the greatest things I think I gave the world were my son and daughter. And because they are just, I mean, gosh, first they supported me for so many years in what I did and dragged them from rinks to rinks and each of them supporting, each of them showing up. And yeah, I love them to death.
Beautiful. And grandkids? How many grandkids?
5 grandkids. The oldest is,
Woohoo!
I know the oldest is 19 and the youngest is 5.
Wow, 19. That's my son's age.
Yeah, 19.
Wow. Well, those are significant accomplishments. I always say, what is your greatest success? And it sounds like your kids are your greatest success that has come about your career. So, Brenda, it has been really lovely speaking with you. I do have a couple more questions. Of course, this is the Woman of Inspiration podcast. And celebrating the achievements of women is so important. It runs through my veins where we need to be celebrated and into the spotlight. So, why do you believe it is important to celebrate women and women in sport?
Because I think we're deserving of it. And I think we're worthy of it. And I think in our lives as women, we don't ever believe we're worthy of accomplishments, of achievements. And I said this when I spoke at the YWCA Women in Distinction. It caused a massive silence in the room when I walked up. I had a 3-minute speech. And of course, name Andrews, so you go first. And I walked up there and I kind of knew what I was going to say because the gift of what I was going to say was given to me. And when I walked up on the stage, I said, I want to thank everybody. And I just want to tell you that I'm worthy and deserving of this award. And 1,000 women in the crowd went dead silent. And then when my next words were, because we are, every woman is. And so often we don't speak that. And so I am an advocate that women are worthy and deserving of awards, of achievements, of accomplishments, and they can be on any level. They can be on any level. Because trust me, is the one thing the boys do well. If they win a soccer trophy at the age of 6, they celebrate. And we go, well, we didn't really play well, So I say to everybody, I'm a supporter. I believe in it because I believe every woman, every single woman out there, including you that are listening today, you are worthy and deserving of every single achievement and award that you are currently getting or that you will get.
And I have always said this, when we celebrate one woman, we celebrate all women. So, whatever you are celebrating, keep that in your head because you're celebrating for those that did not celebrate what they should have celebrated, right?
Agreed.
It's just that progress that we're making together. And, okay, so one quick rapid fire for you
Yeah.
is a favorite book. Like, I'm always intrigued by the favorite books that you might be reading. So I know you probably don't have much time to read right now with all the things that you have ongoing, but maybe one book that you can share with our readers that are going to be Brenda's pick.
Yes, I would say I can see the book too that I can't think of. The Alchemist. The Alchemist is one of my
Ooh,
favorite books. And then the
beautiful,
second book was written about the All Blacks team from Australia. Great leadership skills within that book.
beautiful.
But The
Well,
Alchemist really tells a story.
okay, so The Alchemist is on the list for the Woman of Inspiration book list. So
Okay.
thank you for that. And I haven't read that book yet, but it's been on my list.
No,
So
you're
I'm
gonna
going to
love
have to
it.
write it down and
You
go to
got it.
Amazon.
Yeah, you'll love it. The kids gave me a leather copy signed by them, and it was like so cool because yeah, it's just a great book.
Beautiful. Christmas is coming. Cha-ching, cha-ching. Um, and I always want to end with, as a woman of inspiration, Brenda, you inspire, you lead, and you motivate. But what is your definition of a woman of inspiration?
I think a woman of inspiration for me is, I guess, it would be somebody who's okay and who believes in what they're doing when nobody else does, and in return believes in what you are doing.
Beautiful. That was a fabulous wrap to our Woman of Inspiration podcast with Brenda Andress. Brenda, thank you for sharing your voice, your vision, and your unstoppable passion with us today. Your story does remind us of your leadership that isn't just about titles, it's about courage, conviction, and creating space for others to rise. To our listeners, we have a job for you. If you loved this episode, please share it widely. And if you're inspired by this episode and want to learn more about SheIS, the link below in the podcast and really just connect with Brenda. And she needs help. She needs help. I think that's one thing that we can do is share the podcast, have others listen in so they can learn what they need to do. I think would be a great first step that doesn't cost a penny. So thank you, Brenda, for a great podcast. Any final words for our listeners today before we wrap up?
No, except thank you for what you do, Monica. I think it's essential that you are telling and allowing us to tell our stories. So, right back at you.
Thanks. Cheers. And I'll see you in the green room. Have a great day. Thank
You
you,
too.
listeners.